From the shadows of the coven to the lips of the living, VE Cosmetics conjures up a beauty so good, it must be witchcraft. Vegan and cruelty-free for those who walk between the worlds. VE Cosmetics. Grab a discount with my affiliate code BELLWITCH at the checkout. BELLWITCH, all one word, for a 10% discount on your entire order. And a little tip for this witch.
Pull up a chair and sit a spell. Here at Mountain Murders Podcast, we're pouring straight from Pappy's jug and spinning true crime tales from deep in the hollers of Appalachia to the bustling cities up and down the East Coast.
It's hooting, it's hollering, it's murder with a side of the alternative.
Woo!
We dig into the dark history, the outlaws, the secrets, and the downright strange cases that'll make your hair stand on end.
Holla! So whether you're a city slicker or a ridge runner, come join us by the firelight. Hit play and let's raise a little ruckus. Mountain Murder style. Yeehaw!
Let's get it, boy.
Darkcast Network, bringing our indie podcasts out of the shadows.
Ho, ho, ho!
Season's greetings, lovely listener. Welcome back to the last Solitary Witch episode of the Bell Witch podcast of 2025. Blessed Yule to you on this day. I hope your day is filled with Yule celebrations, logs, Christmas trees, fires, mead, all the good stuff, all the Christmassy stuff. I am really looking forward to sharing this episode with you. I did want to do something festive, something of the season. It was very tempting to do a Yule episode, focusing on the stories and the folklore of the darkest day of the year, when the infant sun god is born and the goddess is croning and she's knackered from giving birth to this beautiful little sun god, and his little rays are going to start getting strong around Yule time, which is usually the 21st of December. But then what happens after Yule? That little known thing called Christmas. And there's that certain guy that comes into our house and eats all our food and leaves us presents under the tree. Yes, we tend to invite Santa Claus, the deity, the legend, the spirit of this fantastic magical guy from history who's been around for a very long time, to come into our household by any means magic he has and leave something for us under the pagan-inspired fern that is decorated in our house. The fern which represents the persistence of life in the dead of year and the darker months. It is true that this time of year is an absolute feast of folklore and paganism and witchcraft. The 7 Yule brothers and a massive cat that eats your clothes if you don't get new ones for Christmas. Scary Krampus and the Yule goat. It was really hard to pick a subject, but I kept coming back to masculine figures in paganism that may inspire Santa Claus, which I think is quite a unique perspective or angle for a witchcraft podcast to talk about. And I've got to say, it's been an absolute joy to create. I've really enjoyed looking at where Santa Claus could have come from and what's inspired him. It's unleashed my inner child, and it's also inspired a bonus episode with my good friend Chu, who knows about heathenry mythology and can speak to us in detail about one of the figures I briefly mentioned in this episode that may have inspired Santa Claus. And that will be following this episode in a day or two, the last Moot Loot episode of 2025. Oh, it's been a good year. I hope you are well. Are you feeling festive? I have been living in Christmas jumpers pretty much since December rolled round. I wear a Santa hat on every single school run, and it's a really big old fluffy thing that my mum used to wear, which is a big reason why I wear it. Plus, it's also really warm. It's lovely. Ooh, what else have I been up to? The PTA grotto in school, which I think went down more of a treat than last year because we knew what we were doing. I adorned the elf costume, which I'd updated from last year and cut up and combined with my own clothes, which do tend to be elfy green. So that worked really well. Sewed extra bells on them, and I had these really cool feet bells, I guess you'd call them, which I think belly dancers may wear when you walk. I really was just jingling around school, and I absolutely loved it, and I want to wear them all the time. The bell witch covered in bells. I've also put the tree up and I reminisce on each bauble, and I think there's definitely some history there about baubles and witch balls. But also, don't you think that every bauble has a story? I have these baubles from when my mum were a kid in the 70s, and the proper cheesy plastic bushes with like little girls sat on them, little sort of 70s girls. And each one has a story. I've got a reindeer that I remember going to Woolworths and buying with my mum because in Christmas times, back in the day, we used to go to Woolworths on a Saturday and buy 1 or 2 baubles each year for the tree. And that's a tradition I've kept up. Even now, I always get 1 or 2 new baubles every year, and I try and write the date on them so I remember what year they came from. I was thinking this could be an invitation to you, dear listener. Do you have any interesting bauble stories you could share with me? If you've got any, could you put them on Instagram and tag the Bell Witch podcast, separated by underscores? Or comment on this Spotify your favourite baubles and the magical stories behind them. Don't have to be too magical, could just be funny. I am so here for it. That would be so cool if you could share your bauble stories. Right then, that's enough from me. Let's go.
Ho, ho, ho!
Once upon a time, in the heart of the ancient forests of Mother Gaia, where the whisper of the wind through the trees carries tales of old, there existed 2 powerful woodland beings, the Holly King and the Oak King. Their entwined story unfolds against the backdrop of Yule, the midwinter solstice, a time when the light is at its weakest, but hope is flickering brightly. As the year draws to a close, and the days grow shorter and the nights become longer, the Holly King, adorned with his vibrant green leaves and bright red berries, reigns supreme. His presence is felt in the chill of the air, in the cracking of the fire that warms the hearths, and in the heartfelt gatherings of families and friends during these darkest days. The Hollykin represents the victory of winter. He is robust, embodying endurance against the cold and the darkness. His laughter echoes like the sound of ice crystals forming, whilst his spirit breathes life into festive celebrations filled with feasting, merriment and the warmth of community. Yet the Yule season is not solely ruled by the Holly King. As the night of the winter solstice approaches, the Oak King, the embodiment of the coming light, lies in wait for his time to reign. Wise and strong, he bears the deep, nurturing essence of the earth. During Yule, he slumbers in the shadows, preparing for the moment when light will begin its gradual return. The Oak King is painted with hues of rich browns and deep emeralds, reminiscent of the forest waking life in the spring. On Yule night, a great convocation takes place. The stars shine brightly in the crisp sky as creatures of the forest gather under the ancient burrows. The air crackles with excitement, for this is the sacred moment, the time when the Holly King and the Oak King must meet and determine the balance in the seasons. As midnight strikes, the Holly King, his crown of holly berries glowing with the light of 1,000 candle flames, stands proud before the gathering. He boasts of his triumph over the sun during the past year, celebrating his victory with heartfelt song and reverent toast from the woodland creatures, who dance in a joyous frenzy. I'm the keeper of the winter's beauty, he declares, his voice like a roaring fire, and my reign shall endure. But just as the rivalry reaches its zenith, the Oak King rises, emerging from the shadows clad in robes woven from sunlit leaves and earth. He calls the spirits present to silence with his deep, resonant voice. Dear friends of the forest, while I honour the beauty of winter, the cycle of life demands that we embrace the return of the light. The sun will not be defeated forever. With this proclamation, the two kings face each other, embodying their respective seasons' essence. The Holly King, confident and defiant, draws upon his strength of winter. In contrast, the Oak King draws power from the life-sustaining sun rays hidden beneath the frost. It is now that a battle of wills will endure, cloaked in the language of nature, each king summoning his elemental forces. The clash is not one of destruction, but a dance of life cycles. The Holly King conjures frost and snow, weaving it into a tapestry of glistening beauty, while the Oak King summons the promise of warmth, the gentle thawing of earth, and the awakening of life. With every movement, they remind each other of their place in the great cosmic order. The dance of light and dark, death and rebirth. And as dawn approaches, the Oak King's warmth begins to blend with the Holly King's chill. In this moment of unity, the realization dawns upon them that neither can exist without the other. Together we are architects of life, the Oak King hints, softening the frosty edge of winter. The Holly King recognises the inevitable. Without you, dear Oak King, my reign is but a fleeting moment. With the first light of the solstice breaking through the trees, the victory is not claimed by one but celebrated by both. Together they melt the frost, giving birth to the days growing longer and the promise of spring. The creatures of the forest erupt in joyous song, hurdling the rebirth of the light and the new days to come. Celebrating the rebirth of the light and the new life that is to come. From that day forward they vow to rule together, sharing their gifts in harmony for each side of the year. The Holly King remains as a guardian of winter's beauty, while the Oak King nurtures the life that follows. The cycle is complete, and in their unity lies the eternal spirit of Yule, a celebration of life, of hope, and the sun returning, a celebration of the continuous dance between the darkness and the light, reminding us that even in the coldest of winters, spring's warmth is always on the horizon. And so the Oak King wins the duel and will reign until midsummer on the longest day of the year, when the sun is as powerful as it can possibly be. It is then that the Holly King will awaken from his long slumber, and the whole process will happen once more to create the perfect and most beautiful yin and yang spirit of our seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. Hail to the Holly King, and hail to the Oak King. The Celtic folklore story of the Holly King and the Oak King was the first Wiccan folklore story that I learned as I began my witchcraft journey in life. I remember reading it in one of the books and being just so enchanted by the story of these two brothers that fight to rule the land over the coming seasons of the year, fight for the fair maiden's hand in who will be her betrothed. And 10 years later, I still love it now. In some Wiccan teachings, it suggested that the Holly King and the Oak King are actually two dual personas in one god, the god Cronus or Pan, or the woodland forest god, aka the horned god, because he embodies both darkness and light at different times. So it's just another way of looking at it, really, I suppose. Balance within one legend or deity or god is most likely more harmonic than the battle between two brothers. Either way is good for me. As most of you know, my witchcraft really is about the light and the dark and the balance, the yin and the yang. To have a balanced pagan and witchy life, you do need both aspects. As for anything to grow requires darkness in the beginning and light to nurture. And in this time of midwinter, it is required and requested and needed that we are allowed to retreat and hibernate. Like the crone having given birth to the sun god, now she needs to retreat to heal and to assess herself. All these things are really valuable and definitely something that needs to happen every year, just as the trees lose their leaves and certain woodland animals dig deep underground and hibernate until the sun becomes much stronger than it is now. They educate us that we can slow down and let go of things, recover, recoup, and create energy for the life that will sprout in the spring. And other mythologies, such as Germanic and Nordic and Hindu, have a very similar story of these two kings. It's mirrored throughout many of culture folklore, and possibly the most famous example we have is in medieval Europe, which is the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which incidentally, the Free Ravens podcast has just released an episode about this very battle over on their feed. So I do encourage you to go hop over there after this and continue your feasting of the ears. There's lots of it sprinkled all around different cultures because it works really well. And of course, it's very festive. The Oak King is representative of hope and awakenings, New Year's resolutions and plans for the future, growth and stability. He is very reflective of the Green Man, which you know is also one of my favourite legends. I did an episode covering the Green Man back in summer. I shall put a handy link in the show description. Strong and firm the Oak King is. He is magical. He is the guardian of the animals and the forest, and I think he feels quite serious in his endeavours. Whereas the Holly King is such a jolly, present in the moment and very festive aspect, who wants to get merry and not reminisce, think about the here and the now, be present and celebrate. Present is a presence, which is quite uncanny that, you get a present, a gift, and you also have the gift of right now in the present. And there is parallels with the Holly King representing Santa Claus, Saint Nick. He is a woodsy pagan Santa Claus of the snowy forest. And he reminds me of the ghost of Christmas Present from the Muppets Christmas Carol. That puppet there is absolutely fantastic and is totally a pagan Santa Claus. You know the one I'm talking about, from 1992 with Michael Caine. That scored at 7.8 on MIDB, that's very impressive. I live my life by IMDb scores, and that is a true mirror. Fun fact for you. Did you know Sir Michael Caine actually worked with the Muppets, considering them to be actual real actors on the set, not puppets, but alive, and used to talk to them as if they were actors not acting, which I just think is a great fun fact. Like actual co-workers, which is why it is so fantastic and definitely the best Muppet film ever. But anyway, I digress. I love it when he goes, "You're a little absent-minded spirit," and he goes, "No, I'm a large absent-minded spirit. Ho, ho, ho." And when I was making this episode, I realised it's because he doesn't have any memory, because all he knows is the present moment, so he doesn't have any memory of anything that's just been, and he doesn't look to the future. And I only really figured that out while I was thinking about this episode, which is like mind blown. Just going to say for the record, The Muppets Christmas Carol is absolutely my favourite Christmas film. I watch it every year, along with Bad Santa, obviously not with the kids. And again, them two are quite yin and yang, but it is something we have to watch every year. And I find it so interesting that even as a kid, the ghost of Christmas Present in that film was and is always going to be my favourite ghost of the story and of the film, as well as Rizzo the rat, obviously. Light the lamp, not the rat. Light the lamp, not the rat. Whilst researching the ghost of Christmas presents, I found somewhere, and I can't find it now, it's really annoying me, but apparently the author Dickens went to America and was inspired by the figure of Santa Claus, aka Father Christmas. And also the magic of snow over there, as I don't think UK'd see much snow at actual Christmas then. And so Dickens is known for bringing the white Christmas thing that we all know and love, brought it back to England and used that character, that folklore character, as inspiration for the spirit, which was such a class move. To Mr. Dickens, I salute you, sir. But where exactly is Santa originated from? I do think a little bit of the Holly King. There apparently are two winning theories from our research, which seems to be combined into what we have today. Santa Claus was influenced by Saint Nicholas, a 4th century bishop from Lycia, which is now Turkey, who became the patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. It was said that he was a very charitable and godly man who didn't judge, who had a heart of gold and wanted to help those in need and possibly spread some lovely festive cheer just because he could. Yes, he was a bishop who liked to support the poor and needy out of his own pocket, which may have been quite unusual back then, earning him a place in heaven and folklore for many centuries to come, and is still portrayed in European countries as a man with a beard, wearing ceremonial robes, and being celebrated and remembered for his great generosity. The other influential theory from history is one that appeals to my witchy pagan heart a lot more, and that is Odin and his mighty Sleipnir, a horse with the ability to fly and has 8 very long, well, not very long, but very active legs. How many reindeer is there? Among the early Germanic tribes, one of the major deities was Odin, the god of war and the ruler of Asgard. A number of similarities exist between some of Odin's escapades and those of the figure who would become Santa Claus. Odin was often depicted as leading a hunting party throughout the skies, in which time he rode his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. In the 13th century, the poetic Edda, the loyal Sleipnir, is described as being able to leap great distances, which some scholars have compared to the legend of Santa's reindeer. Odin was typically portrayed as an old man with a long white beard, much like St. Nicholas himself. And it was said that during those winter months, children placed their boots nearby the chimney, filling them with carrots and straw as gifts. And when Odin flew by, he rewarded the little ones by leaving them gifts in their boots as exchange for the carrots and hay. Interesting that this has survived as Christianity took over, and as a result, it became associated again with St. Nicholas. And that is probably why we hang a stocking on the chimney. And I got most of that information from learnreligions.com, which is my favourite website on all this jazz. Up until the 20th century, Saint Nick and Father Christmas were depicted in earthy tones like greens and browns and tans, probably wearing skins of forest animals such as deer and bear, and probably supporting a bit of foliage as well. This is the imagery that was commonly seen in vintage illustrations such as Victorian Christmas cards, etc. Walking through deep forests of snow and bare trees, holding up a lantern to guide his way. Ooh, sounds a little bit like the Hermit Tarot card, which is also definitely a Yuletime vibe. Oh, it's just so pagan, I love it. Did you know that it was actually Coca-Cola who changed Father Christmas from green to red in 1931? Coca-Cola hired the artist Hedden Sundblom. What a fantastic name! To create a definitive look for Santa for their holiday adverts. He created the image of a jolly plump man in a big red suit that matched the Coke's branding. How successful was that capitalism there? Wow. Thank you to the Billion Shots on Instagram for that little cool nugget of information about the Red Santa, and also boo capitalism! He has become the global standard of red, which I guess is a festive colour, but I say we bring the green Santa back. It's really funny because actually I've got a huge green Santa ornament in my Christmas decorations, so deep down within I knew this already, I knew this. And on the altar he goes. On my researching, I found a third influence which may explain the relationship that we may have with the folklore and tradition and magic of Santa. I have a book called Witch's Wheel of the Year by Jason Maneke. It is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And each solstice has a gorgeous ritual for a coven and for a solitary witch practitioner. And on each chapter, the author writes a delightful anecdote about the Sabbath of the chapter. In the Yule pages, he mentions how fun and jolly and how we all get drunk and celebrate the festival of Yule. And this may have been influenced by something known as a mock king. This stems from Roman Saturnalia, which is a celebration that lasts a few days, beginning on the 17th of December and lasting about 5 or 6 days. It was generally a celebration of abundance and included feasting and often heavily drinking. It was also a holiday that reversed the social norms. The Greek writer Lucian, 120 C to 180 CE, wrote of the holiday, "Let every man be treated equal, slave and free man, rich and poor." So everything was backwards and just a bit silly. One of the longest lasting traditions associated with Saturnalia was that the mock king ruled over an individual's personal celebration and was genuinely just a very bad influence. The mock king became known as the Lord of Misrule in the Middle Ages and presidented over winter celebrations in manor houses throughout Europe. And many rituals, I believe, grew from this period in history. The medieval one used to last from Samhain to Imbolc and was generally a very messy time and probably went on just a little bit too long. The Lord of Misrule became heavily connected with Yule and everything it represented, hence the overindulging. There was eating till you were sick, there was gambling all your money, there was drinking till you didn't know who you were. Slaves became masters and the masters became the slaves. It was actual chaos, mocking order itself in every single way imaginable. Bit of a gesture theme coming on. It was, as James Fraser argued in The Golden Brew, the sacred inversion, a moment when the world turned upside down before returning to the order. The idea of sanctioned disorder travelled north, morphing through the centuries into the English figure, the jolly Lord of Misrule, who perhaps was starting to resemble Father Christmas a little bit. Appointed by noble households, colleges, guilds, and even monasteries. Oh my God. He ruled over the revels from All Hallows Eve up until the 12th night. Known in Scotland as the Abbot of Unreason, and in France as the Abbot Stultolrum, I think it is. He persisted over masquerades, games and parodic rituals. In one colourful description, a Misrule parade included hobby horses, dragons, pipers and dancers. Every one of these men invested with liveries of green, yellow and some other wanton colour, hanged with gold, rings, precious stones and other jewels. 5 golden rings! They have their hobby horses, their dragons and their other antiques, and then march as this heathen company towards the church, their pipers piping and their drummers thundering. Ooh, does this sound like a certain song? Even cathedrals joined in, appointing boy bishops. The Feast of Fools in France saw clergy's singing bawdy songs from the altar. These customs were not just tolerated, they were integral to the season. Ooh, I'm kinda sad I missed it. Obviously, this behaviour couldn't continue and it didn't last long, as the rise of the Protestant church were like, behave yourself now. Protestant reformers brought the moral reform and suspicion of disorder in 1555, and Queen Mary outlawed it. Boo hiss! However, as the Lord of Misrule vanished, his spirit survived in folk drama. In rural England, the role passed to a familiar figure we know as Father Christmas. This Father Christmas was no gift bringer. Instead, he was an actor, a performer of the 18th and 19th century, mumming plays. These plays were rustic theatre, a blend of ritual, satire, slapstick that was performed in barns and kitchens and village halls during the 12 days of Christmas. He definitely was no saint, as he banged on doors with pipe and drums, demanding, "'Tis now in the merry time of Christmas, and Christmas dwarf near. I hope your pockets are full of money and your cellars are full of beer," which he wants to come in and drink. The troupe would perform a rough play full of mock combat, resurrections and bawdy jokes. Mumming and wassailing was commonplace in these broady stage productions. Apparently, mumming is about the hero winning scenario, such as George and the Dragon, which is played outside on the streets, which I didn't know until just now. The tradition of wassailing is the act of being drunk and rowdy, having too much a merrier time in the festive season. Kind of like earning yourself an asbo, knocking on people's doors and demanding some treats or something of the like. Every day I'm wassailing. There's a poem about this. Can I read it to you? It goes, "Here we come a-wassailing among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so far to be seen. Love and joy come to you and to all your wassail too. May the gods bless you and send you a happy new year. The gods send you a happy new year. Good master and good mistress, as you sit beside the fire, pray think of us poor children who wander through the mire. Love and joy come to you and all your wassailing too. May the gods bless you and send you a happy new year. Bring us out a table fine and spread it out with cloth. Bring us out a farmer's cheese and some of your Christmas loaf. Love and joy come to you and all your wassailing too. May the gods bless you and send you a happy new year. May the gods bless you and send you a happy new year." Wassailers went from door to door singing and drinking to the health of their neighbours. This concept actually harkens back to pre-Christian fertility rites. The only difference was in those ceremonies and rituals. Villagers travelled through their fields and orchards in the middle of winter, singing and shouting to drive away the spirits that might inhibit the growth of future crops. As part of this, they poured wine and cider on the ground to encourage fertility and crops as an offering. However, the former tradition of wassailing was originally a holiday custom focused on food and drink and sometimes petty vandalism. The poor would visit the homes of the rich and demand the drink. In exchange, they would sing, perform plays, and toast to the health of their host. But when wassailers were denied food and beverage, they often retaliated with pranks and violence, which can be known as trick-or-treating today. Another rowdy tradition is known as yolling, and was kept up in Yorkshire until the 17th century. Quite proud of that, actually, that it was Yorkshire that kept that tradition up as long as possible. Yolling was the act of crying yol on Christmas Day in churches, being rowdy and loud in hope that the message got out that it was time to be festive and party, I guess, in the name of the Lord. I found that little gem on yolling in a very old book I own on winter solstice, although when I have a search on the tinterwebs it just comes up with the noise that a poorly cat in pain will make, which is not right. Could it be that the reason we leave sherry and mince pies out for dear old Santa Claus is because of the mummers who banged on the doors of unsuspecting neighbours demanding coin or food in payments for their performances in mince pies and ale? To not give them anything would ensure you had a year of bad luck or great risk for the next 12 months. Nobody wants that, so nobody risked it. There is a tradition of hiding a coin in a Christmas pudding, which I don't know if anybody does that anymore. I'm always tempted when it comes around. We try and pour fire liquid onto the Christmas pudding every year, which is no easy task. But the husband will not allow me to put 10p into the Christmas pud, as it may result in a trip to the A&E. But I just love the history and the folklore. I think all of it could be true, and it could just be a big mishmash of all this historic traditions and folklore that has greatly inspired what we currently celebrate today, which is our 21st century version of an absolute legend, the Santa Claus, who I really like as a witch. As a mum, the magic is very much alive in this house, at least for another year, as my 10-year-old starts to look at me a bit questionable. But I wanted to end on the acknowledgement of the magic that goes on this time of year. I know as a pagan, I often chuckle to myself because of the traditions many mainstream people do, the non-witches and the non-pagans. Most of these things stem from paganism. It's amazing, really. And Santa Claus on Christmas Eve is probably the biggest, the most practiced internationally magic spell there is in the world. It is enormous. So many people take part in this tradition where families leave offerings of a mince pie and some brandy or some milk and a carrot for Rudolph or Sleipnir on the table. That is a generous offering in terms of how offerings go. I mean, because an offering is something you sacrifice, and a mince pie is blooming tasty, isn't it? Like, I reluctantly give up mince pies. Of course, we always do for Santa, with a special plate and a special cup. Oh, it's so magical. People do this again and again every year, and witches know every time you repeat a spell, every time you repeat a ritual, it grows in strength. Billions of people are doing this spell, repeating it every year, and it's going to grow so big in strength every year because people repeat it. A spell of coming together and a spell of gratitude and family and hope for the coming year, giving gifts just because it feels good, celebrating the presents as well as celebrating the present, and having hope for the future and ending on a high. Savour these moments if you can. Don't get sucked into capitalism. Take a big deep breath and enjoy this festive season, my dear listener. I think it's really obvious that I am a big kid and I do really love Yule and I do really love Christmas. And I do cherry pick bits of Christmas that I like we're not so into the nativities, we're not so into the birth of Christ and all that jazz, but I absolutely adore the birth of the sun, and I absolutely need to know that the days are getting longer, and I really do value the spirit of Santa Claus as a folklore icon, the festive essence, the spirit of Christmas. So with that, I shall leave you be. Dear listener, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout these past 3 years. 2025 has been a bonanza of a year, and I've loved so much of it, and I feel I've really achieved a sense of who I am as a witch and who I am as a podcaster, and thank you for being part of that. I do wish you such a beautiful and fulfilling Yule and a restful, gorgeous Christmas, and have a beautiful new year. I will see you in January 2026. And in the words of the Ghost of Christmas Present from the Muppets Christmas Carol, it's true, wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas. Stay magical, witches.
Ho, 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 ho.